So, have you ever heard of the Pokemon cycle? Well, of course I have, but I can't afford it! A strange phenomenon in the Pokemon fanbase, as well as lots of other fanbases actually, is that a new game in the series comes out, and it's hated! There'll always be tons of people that claim that there's just something missing from this new entry, a lack of the sauce, if you will. And yeah, Pokemon's had this for, well, practically ever now. You're probably tired of hearing this about Black and White by now, but back when they were new, their linearity, bigger focus on story and dialogue, and only allowing you to use new Pokemon was crazy controversial. Hard cut to now, and they're treated like the second coming. Hell, we're getting to the point where engagement farming accounts are saying Sword and Shield were good all along. That's how you know things are screwed. But as for Pokemon Sun and Moon, no, yeah, they were the same way, and arguably, they got some of the worst of it. For years upon years, they were treated as some stain on the franchise. Hell, even now, you'll find some people, mostly people who haven't played the game since they were 2 years old, but I digress, claiming that these were where the franchise turned bad, so to speak. But at large, they've had one of the biggest turnarounds of all. These games are pretty widely praised now for their ambition, their polish, their story. And as for me, I really love the Alola region. So many elements it has are truly unique to it, even today. But to be fair, it has been quite a while since I've last played Sun and Moon. So maybe looking at it with a more critical eye might be in order. I am going to be recapping my whole journey, while stopping at points to elaborate on things as they come up, or just to give my thoughts. I know some people don't like simple recaps, but this isn't a simple recap. It's a long-winded one. Like, really long-winded. I didn't expect this to be this long. So here we go, I guess! Let's dive into Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon 10 years too late. Okay, before we even, get to the language select this time, we should probably get this out of the way. No, I am not playing the expanded release of these games, Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and that is for several reasons, actually. But don't fret, I like those games too. They're going to get their own discussion later on, okay? Okay. Mwah. So, upon first booting up the game and... Aw, damn, I'm having fun already! Most Pokemon game openings are pretty sterile, even beyond most of them following the Welcome to the World of Pokemon structure. They're all in white voids. And in newer games, the language and character selection screens just look depressing. But here, I haven't even chosen a language yet, and it's already an overload of style. And that style doesn't stop, us getting greeted by a video call from one Professor Kukui. And yeah, I guess from there it is structured like a pretty standard opening. But not only does the more personal feel of the video call kinda tie into some thematic stuff we'll see later, wink wink nudge nudge, but we also get a great grasp on Kukui's character just from this cutscene alone. Anywho, we pick our skin color and name, standard fare as ever, and off we go! Or rather, that's how it would be in any other Pokemon game. The camera pans from us over to a mysterious facility in our travel guide. Oh, okay, that's quite the tonal shift. We're shown a girl running through the facility with something in her bag. As she gets cornered by whoever these people are, the creature in her bag starts emitting a mysterious power. As we're shot up, straight into the logo, and a time skip. 3 months later. If, you couldn't tell, if Pokemon X and Y's intro was all about them showing off how they're in 3D now, Sun and Moon's intro is about showing off how much more cinematic things are going to be this time around. From the character animations to there being a time skip to frame the narrative better. Like, that 3 months later statement is the most basic thing you could add to a story. But for Pokemon, it builds up narrative intrigue that we've never really had before. Which is also funny because that winds up being one of the biggest criticisms of this game. And we'll definitely wind up seeing why. Let's get our Pokemon fans can't read jokes out of the way now. Seriously, what the hell is this? Zooming into our new house with our new mom and old cat, we get ourselves out of bed and right away get handed a hearty amount of exposition from Kukui. Turns out we're from Kanto, he's been to Kanto, he fought the gym leaders in Kanto. Okay, it really isn't that bad in the rest of the game, but this isn't a great start. Even the pandering element aside, this is quite a bit of dialogue to just dump on you at the very start of the game. I mean, it's well written and great for Kukui's character, but come on, I just got started, let me breathe for a second! But hey, Kukui's here for a reason. He's bringing us to meet the Kahuna to get our starter Pokemon. Even with just this short trek along Route 1 where we can't really, do anything aside from watch, oh my god, the presentation is a huge step up from everything that came before! All of the characters are not only proportionate now instead of being chibi-fied, but they're also so lively. It's easy to take for granted because, come on, this should be the bare minimum, but this is the first mainline Pokemon game where characters actually have idle animations. Also, there's the environments too. This was the first mainline game to completely forego the grid-based structure of the world, and it makes everything feel a lot more organic and natural. Roads can naturally curve and bend, trees don't have to be all lined up together. I'd say this still looks pretty modern, especially with all the details that are crammed in. Like, the Alola games are literally only one of 2 examples that I would say actually look graphically great for the system they're on. Just up the resolution a bit and bam, $100 Switch 2 release right there. A little more tutorial talk and build up later, we find ourselves in Iki Town, being the place where everyone comes together to worship the guardian legendary Pokemon of the island, Tapu Koko. Oh, legendary talk, just like that, huh? Looking around Iki Town ourselves, well, there's not really much to do on account of this being the first town and us not even having a Pokemon yet. But it looks nice and displays Alola's unique style and culture pretty well. Heading up a bit, we catch a glimpse of the girl from the intro following the path into the foliage. And in game design terms, that means we follow. This brings us up to a ravine with an old bridge crossing it, where her mysterious Pokemon leaps out of the bag, only to be attacked by some wild Spearow. Okay, yeah, I'll take them on with my bare hands. What, you think I won't? Man, this is all so dynamic. There's such a good sense of the danger and intensity of the situation being done purely through cinematics, which would kind of be a given in any other video game, but again, for Pokemon, this is pretty top-notch. The whole situation is so stressful that the Mon from the bag literally explodes, destroying the bridge under us and dropping us to our doom. Or rather, that would be the case if the deity of the island itself didn't swoop in to save us. The girl thanks us and gives us the sparkling stone that was mysteriously found nearby, and finally, we head back to town where Kukui's still waiting. He then properly introduces us to this mysterious girl, being his assistant named Lily. And with the fanfare of his return, we also meet the kahuna of this island, a man named Hala. After hearing of our brief run-in with the Tapu Koko, he finally gives us our starters. That was a lot of cutscenes, right? Yeah, try soft resetting these things, it's horrible. But the starters themselves, they're a really solid roster. Rowlet, Litten, and Popplio are all pretty equal in my mind. All pretty cute, very distinct. And come on, that moment when you lift them in your arms, that's precious. And we end up going for Popplio, since it deserves some love, thus making Hatsune Miku our first party member. Yes, I know he is male, I do not care. Row, fight the power! We receive our Pokédex and our passport, which is just a more thematically appropriate version of the trainer card, and start heading back home. Even though that's kind of unnecessary and just draws out this incredibly long intro even more. And what makes it even longer is getting jump scared by a random boy named Hau. And naturally, he thrusts us into our tutorial battle right away. God, the style of this game is so great. As for the battles themselves, they're as standard as ever. Pretty much the exact same presentation-wise as X and Y. But hey, this did start the trend of us seeing the trainers in the battles too, making them feel that little bit more immersive. Hell, if anything, the highlight here is the backgrounds. They're all just so colorful and full of detail, even for the 3DS's resolution of Post-it note. And there's lots of them too. Pretty much every area, big or small, has a completely unique one. Coming off of X and Y, and to a lesser extent Oras's pretty lifeless and muted backgrounds, it's a huge step up. But most importantly, we have Water Gun, so House Litten is just dead. Whew, that was quite the eventful first day. Though right before we leave, Hala takes notice of the sparkling stone we were given and borrows it for a while. Mysterious. Gimmicky, even. Alright, time to rest up for the festival happening tomorrow. Ah, a brand new day, and we're only just now getting into the tutorial? Yep, now Kukui's taking us on to Route 1 to show us how to catch things. But after that, we're finally on a Pokemon route ourselves. Only like 30 minutes in. Route 1 isn't very complex layout-wise on account of being Route 1, but it's good for what it is. Decent enough length with quite a bit of grass, a couple items off to the side. There's even some suspicious looking rocks here, so maybe this route is even bigger than it first seems. This view it has over the bay is also a treat, especially with that sunset. And hey, there are some trainers here too, not all that common to see on a first route. Who turned out the lights? Okay, you caught me. I should probably get this out of the way. I'm doing this playthrough on an emulator. Okay, look, yeah, I do own the game, and yes, I have played it on original hardware. But for the sake of recording and convenience, yeah, Nintendo, I'm real sorry. Here, we can just pretend I did this, it's okay. Normally in the Alola games, when you're getting close to a trainer's line of sight, there's this, like, line of vision overlay that appears, showing their, well, line of sight. Adds a bit of tension to the upcoming encounter, it's neat. But on Citra, it just completely dims the screen until you open and close out of a menu. I couldn't get it to fix, so, I'm sorry. But hey, at the very least, we find our next party member right outside of Iki Town, a Pichu affectionately named the Rat. Row, fight the power! It's festival time, and it's appropriately lively here. Hala gives us a bit of a lore rundown, that this is all being done to pay tribute to the guardian deity, yeah, but this line here, "There may not be many of us, but at least every last one of us here goes all out." That's not his voice. This line perfectly illustrates one of the core themes of the game, that being community and family. And yeah, it really makes you feel it. Even more so through our next battle with Hau. He has a Pichu of his own now, even though it did literally nothing but spam Tail Whip on me. Like, it has Thundershock, I don't know what this is about. And afterwards, Hala returns our Sparkling Stone to us, now in the form of the Z-Ring. And that is all the plot significance this thing has. Yeah, no joke. It will become useful a little later on, since, well, spoilers, Z-moves are the main gimmick of the game, but plot-wise, there's literally nothing. We earn it from Tapu Koko, which is nice at least, but that's it. And while we might not learn much more about the Z-Ring, we can learn about this region through taking part in the Island Challenge, Alola's big claim to fame, though we'll also learn about that a bit later. For now, it's time to call it a day. Again. This is the third time we've had the same shot of our mom basking in the sun on the porch, dude. Okay, it's been made pretty damn clear by now, but the Alola games aren't exactly known for having the best pacing, especially around the start. Because holy, this entire opening sequence is so slow and drawn out. I will say the world building and establishment and general character stuff presented here is really great, but it could have been condensed. Like, that entire second day where we have, what, like 10 minutes to play around on Route 1 could have been condensed into the first day. And while this opening does probably have the worst of it, this flaw definitely does not go away as the game goes on. Anyway, we answer our door again, only for it to be Lily this time, as she takes us on over to Kukui's lab nearby. But not before a goodbye from our mom, who Lily somewhat hesitantly notes as being nice. I'm writing this down for later. The lab itself is just down near the beach of Hau'oli outskirts, which sure is an area. Not much of note, really, other than the battles here having yet another really pretty background. I like how beat up Kukui's lab is. It really fits his character and how he researches Pokemon's attacks specifically. But it's not like that's all he's good at, because he also upgrades our Pokédex, inserting a Rotom into it, giving us the new and iconic Rotom Dex. This little guy takes up the mantle of being our bottom screen functionality on this adventure, which really doesn't amount to much. They'll sometimes chime in to remind us of our current objective, and also displays a mini-map, and that's it. Mostly just a stylistic choice. That is until the Rotom Hive Mind started taking over every electronic appliance in the Pokemon world, but that's not yet. Alongside that, we also receive our Island Challenge Amulet, officially setting us off on our Island Challenge. Or not? I kid you not, we're thrust into another mandatory tutorial segment. I would love to say now it's time for Lily, Hau, and Noose Vivi to set off into the vast region of Alola, but no! First, there's the obligatory Pokemon Center tutorial, which, okay, at least looks nice this time around. The music and interiors of the Pokemon Centers in Alola make them really cozy. I like them. In general, they kind of just have a rest stop vibe, you know, just without the Burger King. But then, we're forced to go to the trainer's school, with a Tauros blocking the road ahead just in case there was any hope of skipping this. Trainer schools have been a thing in most Pokemon games, yeah, but they were almost always just small, optional buildings that'll teach you about, like, status conditions and stuff. But here, we're tasked with finding and beating 4 trainers scattered around the school grounds. It's a filler segment, before we've even started the game. Now, admittedly, it's not that bad an execution. All the trainers use different Pokemon while actually applying and teaching you about some different battle elements organically, like in-battle items, moves that raise or lower stats, abilities. But at large, this isn't necessary. I know how to play the game. I mean, just watch this! Oh, also, we get the EXP share here. And in spite of all the hell that's been raised about this item, this game is the best it has ever been implemented. It's optional for one, like you can just turn it off if you want. I don't know why that would be so hard to do, but also this game is exceptionally well balanced around it. Even fighting a bunch of trainers, I never really found myself over-leveled in this playthrough that much. And even beyond that, this game can be pretty damn challenging even with it on. It's refreshing. Anyway, after beating the 4th trainer, we're called to the office over the loudspeaker. Oh, wow. They found out. One last battle with the principal, and we're officially done with the trainer school, making this the perfect time to be introduced to someone actually important to our island challenge, Captain Ilima. As he says, he conducts one of the trials which we will be partaking in on our island challenge, so that's something to look forward to. But finally, that's most of the tutorial done. Yeah, this entire first island kind of works like a tutorial, which is certainly a choice. But at least now, with a hearty send-off from the school, we're ready to keep going. You know, even though we, again, just now finished the tutorial, the scene immediately after, where we gain access to the city, displays a better friend dynamic between us, Hau, and Lily than, like, the entirety of Pokemon X and Y's friend group. And hey, speaking of the city, Hau'oli City is the game's first proper, well, city. And it's really nice. It's big and lively, even though the map of it isn't all that big at all. There's still a decent amount to do here that we'll soon see. Like, there's even some tall grass for some extra encounters, incorporating root-like elements into the city, which is pretty neat. Hau kinda just drags us into the tourist bureau. Okay, the entirety of Hau'oli City, I'd say, is the most egregious example of these cutscenes. They are entirely inorganic. The lady inside upgrades our Rotom Dex to include the Poke Finder, which upon stepping back outside, we get another tutorial for. Who the fuck even is this guy? So the Poke Finder is just a very basic but kind of charming side activity in these games. When standing in certain locations, you'll get a prompt on your bottom screen, which allows you to... Whoa! This isn't even an emulator thing. The Poke Finder segments just run at like 5 FPS for some reason. Anyway, you get to look around an environment and just take photos of the Pokemon you find there. You can then share these photos to accumulate likes, which when you get enough of, lets you upgrade the Poke Finder to... zoom in. Wow. It's not really useful at all, or necessary, but it does add an extra sprinkle of life into the region. It's cool not only seeing Pokemon run around in their natural habitats like this, but it's also just nice to see extra little nooks and crannies of the region that you otherwise wouldn't. Makes it feel a little bit bigger, even if you can't go there. And there are lots of these spots all around the region too, all with completely different Pokemon. And since you can save the photos too, they're kind of a neat collectible in a way. And technically speaking, you do need to do this to 100% complete the game, since one of the stamps on your passport only appears if you reach 1,500,000 total thumbs up. I don't know why people were waiting for new Pokemon Snap for so long, it was clearly right here the whole time. But hey, this Poke Finder thing isn't all just tangential though. Rotom snaps a quick picture of us and our friends. See, that's adorable. Just a little further down, we spot Lily eyeing up a clothing shop. But she says something a little weird here, asking if we pick out our clothes for ourselves, and when we say yes, she very solemnly remarks that she's always dressed the way her mother wants, to a point where it seems like Lily struggles to find what her own identity is. There's a lot to unpack in this statement. But never mind that! Character customization in this game is, honestly, kind of lackluster. The hairstyle options are alright, not much variety, but an improvement over what was in X and Y at least. But the outfits? Okay, so not only are the color options greatly reduced since there's some quirky version exclusivity at play, the colors red, yellow, orange, pink, and beige, how exciting, are only in Sun, while green, blue, navy blue, purple, and gray are only in Moon. And that's not even accounting for all the exclusive patterns, but also, you only have, like, tank tops and t-shirts to choose from? Literally no full pants, the closest you get are these cut-off jeans. I get that Alola is based on Hawaii, and it does a really good job of representing its own culture, and it wouldn't really make much sense to have such heavy clothes in such a tropical environment. This is approaching Paldea levels of restrictive, and nobody wants that. Okay, well, maybe not that bad. Continuing further down the road, we're stopped again, overhearing a conversation about some thugs who steal Pokemon known as Team Skull hanging out around the marina. This does establish that they have a sort of reputation, but we kind of could have just bumped into them ourselves, honestly. There is still a bit more to Hau'oli City, some more buildings to enter, the Malasada shop, which can raise your Pokemon's affection, and a mysterious empty lot. But for now, we make our way down to the marina, finding Ilima and the aforementioned Team Skull, who Ilima pays 0 mind to. And they aren't having that, so we do battle. And we do winning as well, because he just has 1 Zubat. Look, this singular encounter with Team Skull has, let's be real, no impact, but establishing the evil team this early on is really good, especially with how integral they wind up being to every aspect of this story. That was just the warm-up though, since now, Ilima's battling us to see if we're truly ready to take on his trial. Man, you didn't need the rainbow background here, I already knew he was fruity. This fight's actually pretty cool, with his ace Smeargle being a super fun pick for the first boss, quote-unquote. It actually has a different move depending on the starter you chose, always having the type advantage. But we still win, so we start our trek to our first trial site. And Route 2 is an immediate step up. Still not all too complex, but it's pretty long and relatively packed with stuff. There's a motel, this conspicuous house. Even over to the east, there's Hau'oli Cemetery, an optional area just with a couple more trainers, items, and ghost types to encounter. And just by virtue of there being an optional area at all, this game is already better than Sword and Shield. Partway through the route, we even bump into... it's him. We're dragged into the berry fields on this route to stop Team Skull from causing trouble again. And we do that, yeah, but that's it for this area, weirdly. Not only is this entire encounter just kind of pointless, but also, despite being an entirely separate map labeled berry fields, just like the one in X and Y, there is nothing to do here. At most, there's just a standard berry tree that gives you random ones daily like all the others in the region. This area here may seem inconspicuous, but it's emblematic of something in these games that we will see more of later, and it's not good. But for now, a bit further down the route, there's another Pokemon Center tutorial from Hau? Literally, why? No joke, he just tells us about the Pokemart. Like, thanks, I knew that! Anyway, we're finally ready to take on our first trial found in Verdant Cavern, right across the street. Ilima gives us a rundown of how it's gonna go. Just find and defeat the Pokemon in the cave, and reach the pedestal at the end, where we'll face a mysterious totem Pokemon. He also remarks that we're locked in here until we're done with the trial, which does make for a pretty good sense of stakes. So here we go! Trials are like the big claim to fame of the Alola region. Hell, it was a big point made leading up to the game's launch that Alola has no gyms. And these things were an incredibly smart decision. Not only do they add that extra bit of identity to the Alola region, a place that's already overflowing with it, but this was also around the time when one of the biggest criticisms of the Pokemon games was how similar they all were structurally, all having that exact same 8 gyms and evil team setup. And while to us fans, comparing something like Diamond and Pearl to Black and White 2 is complete sacrilege, from the outside, people treated all of these as more or less the same game. But these trials were kind of like the answer to that, finally moving away from the tried and true structure and trying something completely new. Now in practice, they're more or less the same thing. You have your challenge you're tasked with completing before fighting a boss at the end. Only difference is that instead of trainers, it's wild Pokemon that you're not allowed to catch or run from, and instead of a gym leader, it's... well, we'll get to that. This isn't to say they're bad, though. Verdant Cavern in particular is an alright place for a first trial, needing to peek in these holes to fight Pokemon, and the layout is simple but functional. Plus, it just looks pretty nice too. The light beaming down from above is a super cool aesthetic. The last Pokemon seems to be avoiding us though, hopping in and out of different holes. A puzzle perhaps? Not really. Team Skull attacks us during the challenge, which is something that they do allegedly do, so it's cool to actually experience it. And they just wind up standing in front of some of the holes to corner the last Gumshoos for us. Whoa, a callback to the iconic Furfrou chase. We'd love to see it. Well, we make it to the pedestal, but upon trying to take the Z Crystal, we're attacked by a massive Gumshoos. Or had we been playing Moon, that would have been Eradicate. That's neat. Thrusting us into our first Totem battle. The Totem fights here are genuinely great. These were the start of Pokemon games trying to have proper boss fights with just a Pokemon itself. Something that was very quickly expanded upon with raid battles alongside far more cinematic Pokemon boss fights, but in terms of just pure gameplay, the Totem fights are still some of the best. They all start with a stat boost right off the bat, in this case being a +1 to defense, beefing it up a bit more. Plus, the Totem is guaranteed to summon an ally at the end of their first turn. And while these allies aren't quite as strong as the Totems themselves, they're still pretty challenging with some nice strategies attached to them, making these fights into some pretty intense 2v1s. And this fight specifically, it is tough for this early on. Fight and Pursuit counter any ghosts you might have, Gumshoos can use Super Fang to wipe half your health guaranteed. So with a bit of a struggle, Hatsune Miku manages to land the final blow. And with a hearty congratulations from Ilima, the illustrious Normalium Z is now ours, with a really flashy and fun animation. This makes it really feel like a big accomplishment, it's cool. Now, what is this Normalium Z? Well, heading back to Route 2, we're just told by Kukui. In a super intrusive and disjointed tutorial. Okay. It's to the point of him flat out demonstrating it in a wild battle. Move the hell over, Kukui, I can do this! So, by having one of your Pokemon hold one of these Z Crystals, they'll have the option to use a Z move, so long as they already have a move that corresponds to that Z Crystal's type. Your trainer strikes a slick, well-animated pose, all based on the type of the move, and the Pokemon executes it with a nice, flashy animation. And Twinkle Tackle is also there, always just resulting in dealing a ton of damage. Yeah, functionally, they're super basic, just one-time limit breaks, really. It's all about pulling them out at the right time. But that's not accounting for status moves. See, while using Z moves for attacking just results in big damage with a fancy animation and nothing more, you can also use Z status moves, and that's where the strategy lies. Depending on the move, it'll have a unique bonus effect, most of which just providing an extra stat boost even if they didn't before, like Splash, Splash, now buffing your attack stat by 3 stages, and you can... probably do something with that. But then there's also more unique effects, like fully restoring a user's HP, Destiny Bond also drawing attacks into the user, and hell, Metronome just flat out calls a random Z move, making for the ultimate Hail Mary. But yeah, that's really it for Z moves. Not too complex, but decently fun to apply. But back to this tutorial on the other hand, this is really emblematic of Pokemon Sun and Moon's start being really poorly paced. Like, come on, this is pretty egregious. The entire game just stops as we sit and watch Kukui do a Z move. And while on a surface level that's like fine and works as a tutorial, none of the other 3 Pokemon gimmicks have done that. With both Mega Evolution and Dynamax, we get to try it ourselves, no strings attached. The game gives us free reign to experiment and explore our new options, making them feel a little bit more impactful. Hell, even with Terrestrialization, even though Nemona uses it before we have access, it's in a fight against her so we can at least see its strengths and kind of engage with it. Whereas in Sun and Moon, we sit and watch. Though for what it's worth, this gimmick does see some pretty decent usage throughout the game, so that's nice at least. It's definitely got that over Megas, that's for sure. Oh, and with Kukui, he also says he lost Lily on Route 3. So on to Route 3! This place isn't that substantial. It's rocky, dotted with a couple trainers, but simple and short. There are some sort of overworld Pokemon here with the Shadows of Flying Mons that'll drop down on you. Adds a bit of extra spice to navigating this place, I guess. Oh, and there's also this guy, Ace Trainer Machina, who only fights you if you've beaten every other trainer on this route. These sort of route masters appear all throughout the game, making for a decently neat side activity to do. But who cares about side activities when we're here for Lily, who's found in Melee Meadow, just off the side of this route. Nebby's escaped from her bag, and it's up to us to get them back. It's kinda just another distraction, but at least it doesn't take long, and Melee Meadow looks nice. No, the actual interesting bit here is this hidden little hole in the wall that brings us down to Seaward Cave, which then leads us to Kala'e Bay. Now, these two areas aren't that much to write home about either, save for their encounters and items. Also doesn't help that for Kala'e Bay we can't exactly swim quite yet, but hey! This early in the game, finding little secrets in optional areas like this? It's fun, and largely, Alola is a fun region to explore. It almost has the same vibes as some of those areas in Unova, like Lost Lorn Forest or the Moor of Icarus, where they kind of have no reason to exist, but it's cool that they're there, damn it. After that little side quest though, and a quick battle with Hau right outside, we're informed that we're ready to take on the Grand Trial, each island's final battle after taking down all of its other trials. And since we've pretty much seen everything there is for us on Melee right now, we head straight on back to Iki Town to face off against Hala.
I've been waiting for this.
With our sparkling stone in hand, Hala expects nothing more than our full power, so finally, let's wrap up the tutorial. Okay, first off, the music here is sublime. It starts off all menacing and deep, perfectly pairing up with the shot of Hala from below, making him seem so much grander than you. Before soon shifting into a more bubbly, fun theme, because at the end of the day, that's what Alola's vibe is all about. And yeah, this fight is pretty fun. And, also, hard? Pursuit on his Mankey to make switching right away unsafe. Arm thrust on Makuhita for big damage. Power-up punch on Crabrawler letting it steamroll you. Not only that though, but unlike how the Megas were treated in Gen 6, here, lots of major bosses do have a Z-move at their disposal. And aside from the fact that the crystal is on a specific Pokemon, there's no set time that they're guaranteed to use it. Thus meaning Hala just has a nuke he can drop on you at any moment, and it's very scary. But on top of all of that, Hala's whole party has maxed out EVs. Plus, despite not being totally maxed out, really damn good IVs too. And that goes for most bosses in this game, hell, even some random trainers. That's completely unheard of in most official Pokemon games, actually putting your opponents on a decently level playing field to you. And as we will see more later, Pokemon Sun and Moon are actually pretty hard games. Well, for official Pokemon standards, like this isn't Emerald Kaizo or anything like that. But yeah, I lost here, pretty bad too, with his Crabrawler indeed steamrolling my team. Second time's the charm though, with Hatsune Miku absolutely tanking the Z-move and retaliating with some nice disarming voices, we take the win. Hala's very pleased with this outcome. Hey, as is Tapu Koko. With the fighting type Z Crystal obtained, this first leg of our island challenge is over. Though not without a resolution to the Tauros arc set up before, of course. Is that what you'd call this? Point is, we're given the ride pager, so now we can summon Tauros to ride it wherever, and we get the safety hazard of an outfit to boot. The ride pager isn't that crazy, but it's still a pretty nice addition to the game. Alola was the first Pokemon region to completely remove HMs, so as a replacement, we have ride Pokemon which are considerably more convenient and fun. And also, in my opinion, a preferable solution to games like Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet, and ZA flat out removing any obstacles from the overworld. Like, come on, this isn't much, but it adds some flavor to the exploration at least. As for Tauros here, it's the equivalent of Rock Smash, and thanks to its speed, it winds up replacing the bike too. Well, that's that, off to the port to continue our journey. But not before Lily stays back to ask something of us. She reveals that Nebby's real home is a far way from here, and she'd like our help in getting it back, since we're a capable trainer and she's not. So that locks in the fact that she'll be tagging along on our island journey too. And, well, even though we should be heading to the marina, we could also go back to those rocks we saw before. Yeah, take that! Wow! Rourke! The important thing about this is that near Kukui's lab, we can now access 10 Carat Hill. It's a very minor area, just having a straight corridor that leads out to an open hollow with items and, you'll never guess, Pokemon, but it's neat at least. Speaking of those Pokemon though, this is where we wind up catching our next core party member, a Rockruff named Roche. It's him.
Row, fight the power.
With that, our business on Melee Island has come to an end. Finally at the Hau'oli Marina, Lily, Kukui, and Hau are already waiting. You think they, named the city after him? There's some great character banter here, talking about the age of the boat. It's just nice, charming character stuff. And the cutscene that follows is great too. Hau loving the thrill, Lily being all paranoid. Plus, it's nice visually. The cutscenes in this game are honestly just like the gold standard for this franchise. And that last shot of Akala in the distance. The scale of the world here is awesome to see, even if during gameplay, it's really not all that impressive. Hey, speaking of Akala... After we arrive and Hau stops being unfunny, we're soon introduced to both the island's kahuna, Olivia, and a trial captain, Mahalo. The vacant look in our eyes seems to catch Malo's attention too. Everyone splits off to do what they came for. Lily in particular is ready to head towards this island's ruins, and Heya City. This place is... Oh, never mind. We can't access over half the city yet thanks to this lady and her Stoutland. Okay. Cool. For now, though, we do get another moment with Lily, learning from her that this island's own guardian is named Tapu Lele, found at the Ruins of Life, so that's something to look forward to. Though for now, she's just going to wait to meet up with someone at the Tidesong Hotel. Someone very important to her. Suspicious. Oh, also, this little plot point actually never gets a resolution. Some people say it's Gladion since he does live on this island, but I've also seen some people interpret it differently as her wanting to meet either Faba or Wick, but she's at the wrong hotel. Man, of all the things to theorize about in this game, who was Lily meeting? Well, regardless of any of that, I guess it only makes sense that we follow— oh my god, French people! Our first case of meeting returning characters in these games, Dexio and Sina are here! Remember them from Kalos? No, you don't. And Dexio battles us. Just because. Damn, that act alone makes him more worthwhile than an X and Y. It's just a Slowpoke and an Espeon, but hey, this early, Espeon can be kinda scary. And also, this is just because we're in Sun. If we had been playing Moon, we'd fight Sina instead with her Delibird and Glaceon. Neat. Anyway, after that, they tell us their true reason for being here. Or rather, give it to us. The Zygarde Cube. That is not a cube. So, I guess because Pokemon Z wound up being cancelled and literally all of the plans for Zygarde were still unused in the games up until now, they just shoehorned this guy into Sun and Moon for no reason. It's kind of out of place, and you can really tell that it's mostly just a carryover from Pokemon Z, so they're damn lucky this is a really fun side quest. There are 100 Zygarde cells placed in places all around the region marked by these little sparkles. Go! It's a proper collectathon that really encourages you to explore every single nook and cranny of Alola. Hell, a handful are even found in buildings too, so you really do have to look around. And honestly, this side quest forcing you to look so thoroughly like this kind of makes up for some of the more lackluster elements of Alola's area design. In my opinion, something like this, at least in some shape or form, should be a staple of every Pokemon game going forward. Gives way more incentive and variety to exploring than just more Pokemon. And hey, 9 years later in Legend ZA, they finally kind of explained why Zygarde was here. That's something. But for now, we can't really do anything with our collected cells, but I guess that gives us more time to gather them all before we finally can wreak havoc. And as for where we are now, Route 4. It's not much special, it's a windier route than what we've seen, but that doesn't translate to more complex. The trainers here are the most notable part, if anything, being kind of threatening. They killed Roche, multiple times. Yeah, the difficulty isn't exclusive to the big bosses. Or maybe I'm just bad. At the end of the route lies our next locale, Peniola Town. This place is super distinct, even if it kinda doesn't really make much sense to be here. It's like a Wild West type town. Not super complex, but it's neat enough. More so just a pit stop for us, which makes even less sense. Why is there just a random Wild West town in the middle of this otherwise very green and developed island? I guess that's a bit of a consequence of the more relatively realistically styled graphics. The sort of suspension of disbelief the chibi style lends itself to just isn't here. Well, that aside, Hao wants to battle us again. An old-fashioned Western showdown, as he calls it. He still has just 2 Mons, so this is a very easy fight in contrast to the rest of the game. Doesn't stop Roche from dying again, but we still win fairly easily. What's this button do? Yeah, I realize I should probably talk about this feature sooner than later. Pokemon Refresh. This is just this game's take on Pokemon Me, and compared to Pokemon Camp and Picnics that came in the games after, boy, you can tell here. Pokemon Refresh is pretty much just Pokemon Me again, where you can pet your Pokemon and feed them with Poke Beans this time to raise their affection level. However, there are some key differences. This time, there are no minigames. Actually tragic, when are we getting our tile puzzle remake? No, the gimmick this time around is these tools. Sometimes your Pokemon will just have shit on them, be it dirt, dust, water, matted fur. The debris that appears on the Pokemon actually depends on the move that they were hit with during the last battle, which was a cute detail. There's also the medicine that's just a free status cure outside of battle, which is obscenely convenient. Yeah, it's nothing crazy, but a cute addition to let you bond with your Pokemon more. You know, after having them completely annihilated. Anyway, just off of Paniola Town, there's Paniola Ranch. Another very simple, small, root-like area, but this one's more open at least. But before we can really sink our teeth into it, we get our shit rocked by a trainer's carbine. God damn it, Roche! We're pulled aside into a pasture to properly meet Mahalo personally. She likes cooking. And more importantly, she adds Stoutland to our ride pager. It's pretty much this game's replacement for the dowsing machine, so it's alright, I guess. Arguably more importantly though, she tells us to keep heading down past Route 5 to find the next trial. You know, this game isn't super open, I probably could have just done that myself. Yeah, even though we're done the tutorial, the sort of hand-holding is still here. It's kind of weird to describe, but this game hardly ever lets us just go places. There always has to be some reason given to go to the next area, even if the next area is right there and the only place we can go. Look, I would rather have a direct reason to keep moving forward than not, but it can be a little overbearing sometimes. Unsurprisingly, we immediately find Route 5. We can't access the entire top half of the route until coming back around later, but it's a solid place. Decent layout that connects the places between it naturally, though, like, aesthetically, it's kinda just the same as Route 4, but with some rocks, which was the same grassy vibe and structure as Route 2, which was derivative of Route 1. Yeah, one flaw I will say Alola has is that, in spite of the rich culture that really gets well established and how much fun it can be to explore, the vast majority of the routes don't really have much of their own identities. Sure, there are some exceptions later on in the adventure, and pretty much all of the non-route areas are pretty great, but the numbered routes are, for the most part, just transitionary areas between other areas. But hey, at least, as for Route 5, something, or rather someone rather important, appears here, having just faced off with Hao. From the looks of it, he seems to not understand the fact that Hao's just having fun. I think it's safe to say, he's pretty edgy. This is Gladion. He's training to get stronger while doing jobs for Team Skull, and he also battles us on top of that. Man, I love how theatric he is. Like, nothing's canonically wrong with his arm, he just does that. His Ace-type Null is interesting too, not just as a decently difficult opponent for this point in the game, but also, look at it. And that name, this is something to keep note of. Even after we beat him, he seemingly won't let up about getting stronger, even berating Hal for not trying hard enough to do that. It doesn't faze him though. Then some Team Skull grunts appear and randomly call Gladion homeless. What the hell, that's messed up.
Kind of homeless.
And they double down, saying he's not really a part of Team Skull and never will be. He's hired help and nothing more. Damn. We literally just met this guy and he's more compelling than... No. No, don't say it. This game's story, despite some moments being a little drawn out, has been progressing pretty well so far. Things are clearly building. From the start, characters have been well established and big mysteries are always looming over what we're doing. It's really nice. Other Pokemon games have had a spotlight on story too, but never really to this degree. This is special, and I don't care if you don't want to read it, it's just true! Anyway, at the end of Route 5, we find ourselves at Brooklet Hill, standing before the next trial captain, Lana. Oh, by the way, this is what her mom looks like in the games. When are we gonna start seeing fan art of her? Lana tasks us with investigating some mysterious splashing around, even giving us Lapras as a ride Pokemon to do it. Even though this isn't, like, officially the trial, this is the trial. Just traverse the water to these splashing points and fight the Pokemon. Not too interesting. Brooklet Hill as an area looks pretty at least. It has some really distinct geography. And when you're in a certain spot in the third lake, you can see a cave entrance up there, which is completely inaccessible. As we reach the bottom closer to the sea, it starts raining heavily. And now we start the actual trial, which is just a fight with the totem Pokemon, this time being a Wishiwashi. And this fight can be pretty tough. It starts out in school form, which means you're putting up with these stats at a point in the game where most Pokemon look like this. Plus, on top of that, it gets a defense buff, and we're in rain, boosting it and its allies' water attacks. And as if that wasn't enough, the Alomomola it summons can heal it. The Wishiwashi does use Soak though, which does mean you will end up resisting a lot of water attacks. So after what's more of a long battle of endurance, the rat takes it down. With the sun coming back out, we're given the Waterium Z, plus a fishing rod too. See, that's the real reward. And we're free to continue. Back on Panola Ranch, we're able to get past some Sudowoodo blocking our way by threatening them with our new Z Crystal, letting us move on to Route 6. This is the definition of a transition route. It's literally a straight line and it leads back to Heihei City, which we still can't explore all of. Moving on. There's a little girl and her Mudsdale here getting pestered by some skull grunts. She introduces herself as Tapu. We beat the grunts, and that's it. The grunts do start rapping after this whole exchange though. That makes it all worth it. Yeah, this scene kinda just exists to introduce Tapu to us, which makes it a really big pace breaker, but, Royal Avenue. This isn't so much a town as much as it is, a hangout spot, but it's cool, colorful, and lively. It has the thrifty Mega Mart, just a normal-ass department store you can shop at to get some items for cheap. That's fun. Oh hey, they're even selling that item from X and Y that ruined how people speculate about this franchise forever. But obviously, the main attraction here is the Battle Royal Dome, inside which we meet the Masked Royal too. And he's here to teach us all about Battle Royals, not Royales. Royal. A little too early for that. So, with the Masked Royal dragging Hau and Gladion in with us, we're able to try one out for ourselves. First off, holy hell, that lag! Battle Royals are a brand new battle format that only ever appeared in this gen. And they're an interesting concept, but their execution leaves much to be desired, sadly. This is a battle format between 4 people, bringing 3 Pokemon each, or just 1 in this sort of tutorial. Anyone can attack anyone, and the person with the most kills wins. Now, that is a really fun idea, if it was done better. First off, they're kinda drawn out. Theoretically, you could have up to 9 Pokemon fainting in one game. Plus, if you're playing with other players, you'll have to wait for all of them to decide their actions. I've seen how that goes in Dynamax battles, it's not good. Second, getting completely targeted is a real possibility, and as such, Roche gets his ass kicked again. And third, and weirdly kind of antithetically to the first criticism, the match ends instantly when just one trainer loses all of their Pokemon. This means games can end pretty abruptly. At the very least, their place in Alolan culture is neat, supposedly being derived from the 4 Islands Guardians all fighting one another to find out who the strongest really is. And hey, the Battle Royal Dome is a full-fledged battle facility that gives you BP in exchange for some items, plus some exclusive ribbons. Yeah, battle royals are, for the most part, just another distraction, but hey, they are still something to do. Hey, maybe before we continue our journey, let's try one more. Oh, what the hell is this? Yeah, I honestly don't get why they introduced these to you so early when, like, you cannot win them until way later. This guy Mega Evolves as Charizard. I didn't even know that was in this game. Roach, I'm so sorry. Anyway, after doing that little tutorial battle, we're introduced to Kiawe, our next trial captain. But honestly, I'm still fixated on this masked royal guy. He's so suspicious. Move over, Gladion. Null and I need to make it on our own. Nowhere near as intriguing as this guy. Just past Royal Avenue lies Route 7. This one is a bit more distinct from the others we've seen, being along a beach and the outskirts of some volcanoes. The main bit is literally nothing, just another in-between, but stripping out into the water does show you some stuff you can do, right? All jokes aside, it's fine, it's a decent route. Nah, the fun bit here is Wella Volcano Park. This place is actually distinct, being way rockier at the base of a mountain with tons of smoldering volcanoes in the distance. Again, nothing too crazy layout-wise, but it's decent for this game's standards, I'll give it that. Oh my god, it's her. Alright, it's time to start our trek up this mountain and... it's done. I've gotta wait. I love this game, but I will talk about this, and that soon. Just give me a minute. Well, I guess we're already at the trial site. There is a bit more of a gimmick to it this time around, being a good old spot the difference game, with you needing to look at the Marowak and then compare their final poses to how they were before. And then battle, because of course. But the problem with this trial is that only the first spot the difference is, like, actually a question. The second one has a hiker photobomb the picture, which, yeah, is funny, like this guy even has his own merch, but it's not a challenge. And the third adds the totem Pokemon to the picture and literally doesn't let you answer wrong, thus making 2 of the 3 questions joke questions. So the whole gimmick of the trial is a little pointless. The trials so far have been really cool in terms of their presentation and the unique areas they take place in. Plus, the totem fights are, in my opinion, more interesting than traditional gym leader fights. But the trials themselves, they're kind of less interesting than gyms in a way. Well, at least there is the totem fight itself, which, again, is a nice challenge. Salazzle starts with a special defense buff, letting it tank quite a few things like water moves. Its Flame Burst is pretty damn powerful. And it has Toxic, which when combined with its partner Salandit's Venoshock, is enough to kill Roche again. But we do still win, earning the Firium Z. Plus we get Charizard as a ride Pokemon, being this game's replacement for Fly. Even though Charizard isn't even in the Alola Pokédex. It's just comedy at this point. I'm so glad we're finally moving past this era. The weirdest part about Wella Volcano Park is that, like, the way back down is more interesting than the way up. It's longer, has some more trainers. It's a good area, it's just a weird design choice. Though on this trek, we wind up catching another Pokemon that'll help us out greatly. A female Salandit named... No, I am not naming her Clara. Fight the power! You know, we could continue right through to Route 8, but Charizard getting added to our ride pager unlocked something else for us too. In our menu, we now have access to the Poképelago. This is actually like a diegetic location. It's even on the official map art of the region. And it's all overseen by this man named Mode. He hosts these islands as a place for Pokemon to just have fun and do things for you. By collecting and spending Pokebeans here, alongside having enough Pokemon in your PC boxes, you can unlock and develop more islands to do more useful things. A nice incentive to catch as many Pokemon as you can. Going in order, Isle of Beans is unlocked by default, and mainly exists to just give you Pokebeans.
I'm feeling full of beans!
But more interestingly, after placing some beans in this basket, you'll have a chance for wild Pokemon to visit, and if you're lucky, join you. Fun! Next, the Isle of Plenty. This place kinda makes up for the berry fields from earlier. You plant berries, and after enough time, they'll grow into more berries. Yeah, no watering, no fertilizer, just berry duplication. It's definitely useful at least. Isle of Fun. You send your Pokemon down into the mines. Yeah, fun. After some time passes, they'll come back with some different useful and valuable items. I level up. Oh, you sure do. This is probably the most useful island, having you decide via cute and fun drinks what EVs you'd like your Pokemon to gain, or you could just flat out level them up too. Literally no downside to just setting this up at the end of one of your playing sessions. And last, the I Love You. Aww. Where you place your Pokemon in the hot springs to increase their friendship. But if you leave them in there for too long, specifically more than 24 hours, they'll start to lose friendship. So, don't do that. That's pretty much the gist of it. It's not much, a nice distraction, and pretty useful. And it's a pretty fun incentive to play more often, just checking in on your Poképelago to see how things are doing. It's a fun way to add to a session of playing. And this Moan guy? Remember him. He'll be important. Anyway, back on track, right through the tunnel on Route 7, we're at Route 8. And this one's quite a bit more packed than the others we've seen. But before we can really sink our teeth into it, because it's Sun and Moon and there are cutscenes around every corner, Colress! You know, from Black and White 2, he's just here. He has no reason to be, he doesn't really tell us anything, just gives us the TM for Flame Charge, and that's it. He doesn't even, have an important role later on, he just stops us because he does. This is one of the most egregious examples of Sun and Moon's cutscenes being Sun and Moon's cutscenes, because why? Anyway, Route 8, right? The view over the sea is a cool visual, there are some trainers and a handful of side paths to explore, it's neat. There's also this strange settlement we can enter here, which we learn from the employees inside belongs to something called the Aether Foundation. Okay, sort of breaking immersion for a moment, I guess. I really love how the game just lets us discover the Aether Foundation for ourselves before they actually become important to the story. It rewards us for checking things out, and if we were paying lots of attention, we'd realize that these employees look the same as the ones chasing Lily at the start of the game. And the game just lets us sit with this. It's a shocking moment of restraint that's really well done. And I'll reiterate, unheard of compared to the rest of Pokemon Sun and Moon. Beyond that, there's another motel here, and... Oh, sorry, Gladion. See, this is really funny, but then we also overhear that he's been living here for 2 years alone, all paid up front. What is it with this route and suddenly giving us big story clues without shoving them down our throat, but then they thought the Colress cutscene was necessary? Beyond even that, there's this little rocky bit down to the side too. There's a Wimpod in the overworld here, and this is a bit of a puzzle in a sense, even if a small one. It runs away to this hole when you approach, meaning you have to surf around to actually encounter it. Or you could just completely brute force it with Tauros, that also works. Actually, all Wimpod in the game are in the overworld like this. This is the only way to get them. And get her we do, welcoming the one and only Winona to the party.
Row, fight the power.
That's still not quite it for Route 8 though. There's a small inlet here that leads us to the game's fossil reviver, that's good to know. Though more importantly for our causes, there's a Thunderstone back here, so we can evolve the rat into a Raichu finally. Okay, that's not your normal Raichu. I think this is a good time to talk about regional variants. Sun and Moon introduced the concept, and what a cool concept it is. Take a Pokemon people already know well and change it to fit a new region while keeping it familiar. And it works so well for a number of reasons. For starters, it's a fantastic way to do world building. It gives individual regions that tiny bit of extra identity while making the Pokemon themselves feel more like realistic animals that wind up adapting to different ecosystems. And on more of a gameplay level, they're great there too. If a pre-existing Pokemon doesn't really have much to call its own, or is simply, shit, a regional form can breathe more life into them. And with Alola being as culturally distinct and rich as it is, this was the perfect time to introduce an idea like this. They're used to pretty good effect here too. Sure, it is a little lame that the only regional forms here belong exclusively to Kanto Pokemon, but they're still good forms that do get their chance in the spotlight, and plenty of trainers do use them. Sure, this is kind of just a pretty clear case of more pandering, But it's pandering done really well, actually adding to this game instead of just glazing an older one. Also, Alolan Persian is great, I do not care what you say! Okay, finally, just past Route 8, we're back on the upper part of Route 5. And right outside of Lush Jungle, our next trial site. Man, this whole island is kinda just back-to-back trials, huh? Not counting my decades of rambling in between them. It's not a bad thing, we're still early in the game, and the general story pacing has still been decent. Just kinda funny how you shotgun 3 of them here, and the rest of the game just isn't like that at all. Anyway, inside Lush Jungle proper, Mahalo tasks us with collecting specific ingredients to make the Mahalo special. And this is actually a solid trial. We have to look around pretty much the entirety of the area for the things we need, having to smash some rocks with Tauros, take advantage of Stoutland, all the while having some battles sprinkled throughout, of course. And Lush Jungle itself is a pretty alright area. There's a decent bit of variety and all these nooks and crannies to explore here, plus it just looks pretty nice. But we still get it over with quick. Now that we have all the ingredients, we're rewarded with a pretty nice character moment, with Lana and Kiawe appearing to provide some extra things for the dish. It's a very small moment ultimately, but it showcases a fun dynamic between everyone, and it does well to hammer home Alola's theme of community and family just that tiny bit more. After a bit of a button matching section, damn, and I was calling these trials bad? The totem comes straight to us. The Totem Lurantis fight is another solid challenge for the most part. It starts with a +2 to speed, effectively making up for this being its speed stat, but Synthesis to heal, Solar Blade and X-Scissor, and that's not to mention the allies, obviously. The cast form even having Sunny Day to make Solar Blade even more dangerous. Thankfully though, Gatorade, being a fire poison type, effectively completely walls Lurantis, so that's the Gracium Z obtained. Lana and Kiawe can't handle the spice, so they're out of here. No, I guess they just turned into Kukui. Even though the natural next step would be to take on Kahuna Olivia's grand trial, Kukui encourages us to come along to the Dimensional Research Lab. Wow, that sounds ominous, like a jarring shift away from our happy-go-lucky island journey, but I can't help but be intrigued. There's also this weird thing I noticed where when Kukui talks to us right outside of Lush Jungle, he says, "Hey there, Noose Vivi." That's a canon name, look it up. As if he's just now initiating a conversation instead of continuing the one from earlier. I don't know, it's not like a huge deal or anything, it's just really clunky and I don't know why they did that. Hey though, all that aside, maybe I should heed his advice and grab a grass type. And I think I already have one in mind. Ah, a Bounce Suite, perfect! Wait. Why is it calling for help like the totem Pokemon do? I don't know how to segue into this. Let's talk about SOS encounters. These are an incredibly cool feature that I'm genuinely sad never came back. So when fighting most wild Pokemon, at the end of a turn, they have a chance to call for help, with that chance increasing the lower their health is. Similarly to the regional forms, this really does quite a bit in helping the Pokemon feel like proper wild animals. If they're in a tight spot, it's like the rest of their pack is rushing in to help. And actually, this entire mechanic even ties back to the community theme. I wonder if that was intentional. There are even some cases of Pokemon summoning allies that aren't of their own species, expanding the world building even further. Some can just call for their evolved forms, which makes for an easier way of getting those. Oh, also, obligatory level 9 Salamence mention. Look at it. But there's also any Pokemon in Lush Jungle being able to call Goomy if it's raining, or Mareanie only appearing after a Corsola calls for help, tying into its Pokédex entry that states it preys on them. It's a good addition gameplay-wise too, making wild encounters a tad bit more interesting. However, there's really one main reason they're properly remembered today, and that's for shiny hunting. The more Pokemon you knock out in the same battle, the more bonuses the new ones that appear will wind up getting. And hey, to make it easier, you can use an Adrenaline Orb item to make them call for help more. It's very clear they wanted you to mess around with this. The new Pokemon will end up having more perfect IVs, they'll have a chance for their hidden abilities, and obviously, increased shiny odds. And, in my opinion, this is one of the best shiny hunting methods ever. It's the perfect mix of fair, giving you a shiny without having to go months on end without one, while also not being so easy as to make a successful hunt boring. And considering you have to focus on battling while taking the enemy's Pokemon's PP into account, it can be decently engaging too. So I thought it'd be fun to add a shiny Bounce Suite to our team. I have 12 hours of just Bounce Suite SOS footage. My god, this was exhausting. Like, yeah, as with any shiny hunt, it ultimately boils down to luck, and I just got really unlucky. In hindsight, I probably should have streamed it, put on the fucking Clara cosplay again.
Oh shit.
But no! I sat at my desk in silence, killing Bounce Suite for hours. Until finally, I got it. It's a nice shiny at least. Even though I reset after each unsuccessful attempt, my party did still wind up being pretty over-leveled. So, guess I'll be avoiding as much EXP as I can until the NPCs catch back up. Anyway, tangent over. Welcome Sentry to the party.
Row, fight the power.
Finally, we're back on track at the Dimensional Research Lab, where we meet back up with Lily too. We overhear her practicing telling Nebby to use moves, and she starts talking to it about how after seeing us and Hau do what we do, she's inspired. She never considered being a trainer herself, but she finds a part of herself wanting to follow in our footsteps. It's really nice to see this development happening all the way through the game. Like, we're still relatively early, but the Lily now is already at least a little different from the timid girl we saw at the start. Anyway, we head inside the research lab to meet the head researcher herself and Kukui's wife, Professor Burnett. She's actually another case of a returning character, debuting back in 2012 as part of Pokemon Dream Radar. And there are some fun references to that fact in this lab too. This also means we found who to blame for Landorus Therian. Hau soon joins back up with us because, remember, he's a character too, and we're told about a phenomenon called the Ultra Wormhole, where sometimes a rift to another dimension will appear in the sky, casually. And apparently, strange Pokemon have been said to emerge from them. Burnett even explicitly draws attention to the Pokédex referencing other dimensions in some entries, which is some really cool continuity. But as for the Ultra Wormholes in particular, the Pokemon from within are referred to as Ultra Beasts. Creatures so fearsome that, according to folklore, it took the Island Guardians to take them down. Sure, it's a bit of a lore dump, but not only does it expand a bit on the culture of the region that we do already know a bit of, but also, I think the subject matter is just absurd enough and enough of a departure from what we've already seen to work as a bit more of a text dump. We're not just thrust into another dimension for our first rodeo, it's some good foreshadowing. There was a man named Moan who years ago published his theory about the Ultra Wormholes. Moan? The Bean Man? Lily also dumps a bit of her own lore too, explaining how 3 months ago she came to Burnett herself to try learning more about Cosmog, which is what led to Burnett getting Kukui to accept housing her. And that last line, she's been like a real mother to me. Lily's talked quite a bit about mothers up to this point. It's definitely not a coincidence. Look, Alola definitely does have a cutscene problem, but not all of them are completely unjustified, so... I mean, a skip button would still be nice for replays, but... We step back outside and catch a glimpse of something in the sky, probably relevant to what we just heard. And now it's time to continue on to Olivia's grand trial, just through Diglett Tunnel. And the Stoutland's still not done. What the? This place is also not very complex. We've bumped into that same sentiment a couple times about pretty much every area so far, so I think it's time to expand on that a bit. Despite the shift away from the tile-based roots of past games, helping Alola feel way more organic, immersive, and just bigger in general, since everything's more properly to scale, the depth of the general area design really took a hit. I can only guess the higher amount of detail and the fact that the areas had to be more specifically individually modeled instead of just being built in goddamn Mario Maker. They didn't have the time or absolutely not the ease to make them super deep. Again, I hate to really compare, but look at Diglett's Tunnel compared to, I don't know, Reflection Cave and Kalos, since they're both around a similar point in progression. Reflection Cave has multiple floors, a couple interesting bits of navigation, even discounting the whole mirror gimmick. And everything's just tighter. More trainers, even though in terms of scale, just the first floor of it is around the same size as Diglett's Tunnel. Hell, Diglett's Tunnel just visually looks even bigger. But in terms of substance, it's so much more. Now, I don't think the exploration is as bad as a lot of people like to say. Like, a lot of this game's areas are pretty on par with the type of things you'd see in Unova, honestly. Yeah, it's easy to forget, but a lot of the routes in Black and White were not awful, but they hardly had anything to them. Now in terms of dungeons, yeah, Unova wins by a country mile, but what this game has definitely isn't terrible. And hey, especially later on, there are some areas that I would call genuinely great. It's just that the rest of the game is a little lacking on that front. As for Diglett's Tunnel, it's still fine though. And hey, with that emulator bug, we can even pretend it's a dark cave. Part of the way in, we're properly introduced to the Aether Foundation. You know, that one completely unimportant group dedicated to Pokemon conservation? And they let us know that Team Skull's responsible for riling up all the wild Diglett in here. That's pretty much all the interaction is here to tell us, but hey, it's something of note. Oh, and speaking of Skull, they just spawn at the end of the cave. Oh, and so does Hau, making for our first multi-battle. Huh, surprised it's taken us so long to do one. Hau even uses his own Z move here, that's something to note. He's kind of been a bit of a nothing part of the story so far, still a fine character, just hasn't done much. But seeing this here at least does show us that he is a capable trainer. See, even if Hau's role in the plot is kind of nothing, he's still handled decently well. Well, that's Diglett Tunnel done, with Route 9 on the other end being another filler route, so Coney City. This is a pretty cool place with a very distinct Chinese-inspired aesthetic, with the sort of general theme of a seaside shopping town. I like it. Not so huge on the other mysteriously empty lot here, though. What we're actually here for is to see Olivia at her jewelry shop, only to be told by her promo pass that she's actually in the Ruins of Life to the east of town, just past Memorial Hill. Why not just let us go there first? Well, it's a neat area, fine enough layout for a cemetery. Since I was trying not to overlevel after all the SOS hunting, I was trying to only use Winona and Sentry for a while, which led to battles like this one here, where this kid's Ledian just wouldn't die. Oh my god, we found it! The one time Ledian does something! But hey, I guess Winona's Wimp Out activating makes for a good excuse to talk about this game's UI, because I want to talk about it. Pokemon game UI has rarely ever been anything to write home about. Like, it's always worked, just hasn't had a lot of style to it. Call me when they start taking cues from Metaphor ReFantazio or something. But that being said, Base Sun and Moon is an exception to that, being genuinely really fun to look at. The HUD in battle has a general theme of paint streaks, being behind all the health bars and appearing when an ability gets activated. It fits Alola's already unique vibe insanely well. Even the bottom screen UI, which isn't as distinct, is pretty good too. In battle and even in the bag, it's super colorful and detailed while still being perfectly usable. And you know, even for the Ultra games, which a lot of people say are a big downgrade, and while for the most part, yeah, it is a fair bit more generic, the bottom screen UI, especially the menu in the overworld, I'd argue is even better. I'm still fighting the Ledian, by the way! On the other end of Memorial Hill, we see the Aether Foundation's chief confronting Team Skull directly about a stolen Slowpoke. So naturally, we're thrown straight into the front lines. And afterwards, the mysterious chief is so thankful for our help that he invites us to go see what he calls a wonderful place. Ah yes, let the strange man take you to a magical place. What the hell?
Are you a pedophile?
Just past there is Akala Outskirts, which... yeah. Come on, Route 9, the cemetery, and this could have been one area and it would have worked just fine. Though, right before we can enter the ruins, we're suddenly stopped again! This time by someone named Plumeria. A higher up at Team Skull, describing herself as an older sister. I do not know why she stops us here so abruptly and inorganically. Like, we had another Team Skull encounter literally 30 seconds before this. We could have combined them into just one encounter and added a bit more weight to it all instead of being so segmented like this. And if you remember, this is after already having another encounter in Diglett Tunnel. She fights us as revenge for all the Team Skull grunts we've beaten before, and then immediately after we win this very easy encounter, she disappears. I know I said the pacing gets better as we go, but this is not a good example of it. Well, outside of the ruins proper, Burnett and Lily catch up to us, fair enough, since she did want to bring Nebby here. And Olivia emerges from the ruins too, so we can do what we came to. Our grand trial, right here, right now. This one's not too tough, even beyond me being overleveled. Fully EV'd, yeah, which makes this fight harder than most other Pokemon games by default, But the Pokemon themselves and their movesets aren't too scary. Nosepas's Thunder Wave can be annoying, but that's about it. So, that's the Rockinium Z obtained, and our time on Akala Island coming to a close. Just as we're about to head back to see Hano Grand Resort, the mention of the Aether Foundation seems to make Lily wildly uncomfortable, so she's staying back for now. Huh. Though we do get a nice extra character moment for Hau here. He keeps comparing himself to his grandfather Halo, with his ultimate goal being to surpass him. Even though this doesn't seem to stem from a feeling of inequality, Olivia still tells him to act more like his own person, wanting to see what Hau can do, not Hala's grandson. It's sweet. Anyway, we fly back to Heya Heya. That Stoutland is finally done, so we can now see Hano Grand Resort. This is a pretty cool place. Visually, it's pretty and elaborate, and it connects to Hano Beach too, for a little more to explore. Probably most notably, there's a side quest about Pyukumuku chucking, which earns you a bit of extra money, and it's a cute piece of world building. Like, come on, if I lived in the Pokemon world, I'd love to do this! And on the mini-map, there's a whole golf course! That's completely inaccessible. I think it's a better time than any to finally talk about this. The Alola region, as a whole, feels pretty complete. A decent amount of varied areas, a rich culture, and a solid identity all around. And for the most part, we're able to see and explore everything we need to, and there is a really solid amount of stuff to do. Hell, I'd argue that just playing through it and not hyperanalyzing everything like a lunatic, it feels like one of the most complete Pokemon experiences as a whole. In terms of base games, anyway, because, like, come on. But at the same time, in the cases where there have been corners cut, oh my god, you can tell the corners have been cut! I've mentioned a couple already, but there are just empty lots in most of the settlements in the game, even in the cities we haven't gotten to yet. Now usually, I wouldn't say that this is automatically damning. I mean, if I did, then Vermilion City has been unfinished for 30 years now. But this is different! Most of these not only don't even have any NPCs or anything, but they were also filled in Ultra Sun and Moon! So yes, by definition, there was something missing! Then there's that cave up on Brooklet Hill. Sure, you could write it off as just being set dressing, except you can't, because if you use cheats to get up there, you'll see that the ledge has full collision! Then there's the marginally less egregious cases of Wella Volcano Park just skipping straight to the top, and this golf course where you technically can't prove anything intended to be there was cut, but it sure as hell feels like it. And that's just in terms of areas. Even though this game has a really strong cast of characters, some of them just don't do anything. Spoilers, I guess, but remember Mina, the fairy-type specialist? Yeah, no, she does nothing at all in this game. And then there's also the cases of Colress and, spoilers again, I guess, Grimsley. Everyone say hi, Grimsley.
Hi, Grimsley.
Who, according to the Terra leak, which I'm not going to go that much into, it honestly didn't show us that much for these games, were supposed to be part of a bigger storyline that was scrapped. So here they remain, as remnants of something that was supposed to be here, but isn't. Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon were indeed rushed, as was the case with, like, 90% of the games in this franchise. They really wanted to get out a new generation in time for the 20th anniversary, so they literally scrapped Pokemon Z and rushed Sun and Moon's development. Look, I can't stress enough, I love Alola. Sun and Moon are good games. Fun, well-made, content-rich, well, maybe not exactly rich, more like upper middle class, Pokemon experiences. And again, they do, as a whole, feel pretty cohesive and complete. For the most part. But you really can't help but wonder what could have been, you know? And I wouldn't call this nitpicking either, since many people realized these same things back when the games were brand new. If only they realized they were still pretty damn solid at the time, too. Enough about what could have been, and now for what is. Stepping inside Hano Grand Resort, we're now formally introduced to the Aether Chief, Faba. And he says the fantastic place we're headed to is called Aether Paradise. So with Hau catching up, we're ready to depart. And mysteriously, Lily isn't here at all. Huh. Damn, this place is white! And we can't really explore it yet. We're kinda just being dragged along for a tour in the form of like 15 minutes of cutscenes. Along the way, we meet another important member, Wick, who's far friendlier than Faba seemed to be. She even guesses our age to be 11 years old, one of the few times we're actually given our character's age in a Pokemon game. Notably, she also seems to be pretty supportive to the idea that children are their own people. And well, I mean, yeah, look at these things. She brings it up in a way that makes me want to write it down for later. Lastly, there's the main attraction, the conservation area. I've always loved the look of this place, all the rich nature enclosed by the clean walkways. Too bad there's nothing to do here. Though it does look a little familiar. We wind up finding the president at the northernmost point of the area, and she introduces herself as Lusamine, calling herself a mother to all these Pokemon she's protecting. She even reveals that she's over 40. Zam. She makes a strange, almost controlling comment about picking out an outfit for Hau. And the moment he mentions Lily's name, Lusamine's demeanor takes a harsh turn. People like to complain about this visit to Aether Paradise and how it kinda just stops the gameplay for 20 minutes, and that is fair enough. But in terms of narrative impact, it's loaded. There's a lot here, and the time is used well. I'd say this whole sequence is pretty great to have for the overall story, even if subtlety isn't exactly a priority here. And speaking of story, we're thrust into a cutscene where we suddenly see an Ultra Wormhole appear right before our eyes, only to witness a Pokemon emerge from it. And it completely enamors Lusamine. So it's up to us to step in to protect her. This is a really neat set piece, and the first time Pokemon's really had something like this. We don't even have a name for it, greatly enhancing that feeling of danger. Oh, it's only level 27. Yeah, it's not hard, but that's not what it's trying to be. After we fend off the attack, it vanishes as quickly as it appeared, and Lusamine mutters something about still needing it, and confirms to us that that was indeed an Ultra Beast, so the Aether Foundation will be making some changes soon. Well, we're most definitely traumatized for life now. Let's get on going with our island challenge! You know, even though we're just about to hit the 3rd island out of 4, we're not even close to halfway done yet. Sun and Moon are pretty rich games in terms of content, and especially narrative, as we'll soon see. Even though this first half of the journey has been pretty standard, it's really good standard. Sure, in some cases the cutscenes can be pretty fucking stupid and they piss me the hell off. But aside from that, it's good. And hell, those cutscenes that actually contribute to the narrative are also really good. And also some things get a little worse, especially in regards to the cut content. We're not there yet though, don't worry. So what I'm saying is, only now is our journey finally starting to get into the swing of things. And I'm so excited to finally sink our teeth into what Pokemon Sun and Moon really have to offer. That is assuming they don't up and put me in jail for playing on emulator. Aw, crap. Aw man, I'm just about in their line of sight!